and officially welcome to a beautiful conversation between EMCC Romania and EMCC Asia Pacific. It's my pleasure as a VP of Communication of EMCC Romania, Ana Marie is my name, and I'm welcoming you in this space of exploration. Together from Romania is Vlad Duțescu, President of EMCC Romania. And from Asia Pacific, I'm going to handle the virtual stage to Julie West. Julie, please.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Vlad, also. And lovely to see everyone here today, including I can see a number of familiar faces from Asia Pacific, including Jury, who's another ambassador too. So it's lovely to see you all here, and so glad you've joined, as well as the delegates from Romania. It's a great occasion. So just briefly, I'd like to share some short comments from Professor Anthony Teo, who is a patron of EMCC Asia Pacific Region. And he thanks Vlad and Anna and all the delegates who are here today. And he feels that this inaugural sort of cross-cultural coaching collaboration is a very timely initiative. He urges us to search for core values, particularly those that extend beyond that initial level of cross-cultural interaction that includes greetings and introductory conversations. Professor Teo also mentions that we should ideally look for respect for understanding the heart of the individual, and that power and practice to move people's hearts. He mentions about the power of non-verbal, and in short, he congratulates us on this splendid move to share and discuss cross-cultural knowledge in a coaching context, which he believes over time and with application can help us all to gain increased understanding and calibration. So he apologises he wasn't able to be here today, but they are his sentiments that I've passed on. And I'd like to move straight away now to introducing Akram Sabbagh, who's our wonderful guest speaker for today, or as we often, crunch names down, Ak, we'll call him as well. So Ak is a certified master practitioner, coach and mentor with over 25 years of experience working with very senior levels like boards and executives and business owners on leadership, culture and personal growth. He's internationally recognised, having received the 2021 EMCC Global Coaching Award for an outstanding contribution to the profession worldwide. He's the founding president of EMCC Asia Pacific, where he's championed professional development, accreditation, ethics and leadership across the region. And he continues to serve on the EMCC Asia Pacific Region board. He was honoured by that board as an honorary life member in 2024 for his ongoing impact and leadership. Ak, I'm still going, his plaudits here. He's a published thought leader, having co-authored chapters in industry-wide mentoring and cross-cultural coaching in international handbooks. And also he's the director of a couple of different businesses, his own business, specialising, I think it's your own business, Ak, in coaching, mentoring and consulting. And also he's co-founded a venture capital fund to support next generation business owners. So we're very lucky to have Ak here today. He brings a wealth of global experience and a deep commitment to the advancement of coaching and mentoring. And we're very eager to hear his insights and expertise and to share that with you in this cross-cultural forum. Thank you, Ak. I'll pass it over to you.
Julie, thanks very much for that very kind introduction. A bit overwhelming, actually, when you hear it that stuff about yourself. It gets a little bit exhausting after a while, but thanks very much regardless. Hopefully you can all see my screen and presentation.
All good. All good. We can hear.
All good?
We can hear you. Perfect.
Fantastic. You can see and hear. That's the main thing. And look, thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity, Vlad and Anna and Julie, to just share some, I guess, personal experiences and journey around EMCC and coaching in the Asia Pacific, and importantly, the origination of the Asia Pacific region as an EMCC outpost, if you like, for EMCC. Today is going to be really a sharing of personal experience and reflection. And I apologize in advance if I cross on any toe, if I step on any cultural toes or anything like that as I cross the different cultures, and give a very, very high level perspective of what I've seen and observed and what I've learned from working with people across the different cultures that we have. And I've taken a couple of examples from the work done. Again, with EMCC, I've been privileged to be the founding president for Asia Pacific, and I'm going to call on experiences that a lot of the team that's been involved with EMCC and the build here in Asia Pacific on that. I'm actually based in Perth, so a different time zone to Julie, and so it's wonderful that we can come together. So what I was asked to look at is what are the nuances, what are the differences, what are the challenges in Asia Pacific. But before going into that, I just wanted to give you an overview as to EMCC and the Asia Pacific region. Probably answer a question: why did we decide to grow a region rather than a country? And just to give you an idea of the scale and scope and the timing of where we're at the moment. Then I wanted to share with you some of the nuances that we've experienced over the years together as we've grown EMCC Asia Pacific. What are the challenges? Some of the wisdom and learning that we've picked up from the cultures that we work with and our colleagues from around the region, and how we can adapt and understand from those to our coaching. And what I'm going to do is to share with you some of the, I guess, personal adaptations and understanding that I've taken from my learning, and then been able to play that forward and feed it forward into my coaching. And my invitation to you is to do the same, is to, when you're hearing some of these examples, is ask yourself, how could I take that and integrate that into my coaching? And potentially the next client I work with today, this afternoon, tomorrow, how could I use that as an example and play that forward to help them come to a clear understanding of what they're challenged with at the moment. Then we'll go with a bit of a breakout where in different groups we can reflect on what you've heard, how that affects you, how you see that from your perspective, and your culture, and then just come back together with questions and answers and observations along the way. And again, along the way, if there are any specific questions, please use the chat online chat box to ask those questions, and Anna and I will try to work those through as best we can. So let's get started. First of all, I wanted to share a bit of a personal journey of EMCC Asia Pacific. For that, my background, as Anna said and Julie said, my name is Akram. It's a Middle Eastern name. I was born in Australia of Middle Eastern parents. My father was Palestinian, my mother was Lebanese, both Christian, but from different Christian sects, if you like. And my father grew up in a town in Palestine where there was an equal Jewish, Christian, and Muslim community. And he grew up understanding not only the differences, but the ability to reflect and respect on those differences as they grew up together as friends. And in bringing me up, one of the strongest themes was always one of people have differences, but the most important thing is the ability to respect and learn and understand more from those differences, as opposed to see them as something that's not good or not right, or judge them as not good or not right. So I kind of had a blessing in my my childhood of being able to be taught that judgment doesn't really sit here, but we can learn from what we're seeing. And I kind of hopefully play that forward as we go forward in my work and also in APR. As a formal region, we're 7 years old, so we're pretty young. To kickstart the region, it took 2 years of pre-work with a small team to develop it and prepare it and launch it. And prior to that, a 3-year association with EMCC and the company that I was an owner of at that point in time. Region versus country, very simply, when the then global president, Lisa Lewis, and I were talking about EMCC in this part of the world, the question was, would you like to set up Australia? And my experience in coaching was that coaching a lot of Australian business owners who wanted to grow their business into Asia, there was a very shallow viewpoint of what Asia was, and I remember comments of, well, we'll just set up an office in Singapore and that'll be fine, with no understanding of the culture, no understanding of the diversity of the cultures and the tiering of different cultures and layering that sits within one city, one small country, let alone looking outside to the other countries in the Asia Pacific. So part of it was, apart from the fact that Australia is seated right in the Asia Pacific region, we need to understand other cultures better as much as they need to understand ours. And if I'm coaching somebody, I need to understand that their culture and their belief system has a particular perspective. And the only way to do that is to really look at this more holistically. So I said to Lise, I'd love to do Australia, but more importantly, wouldn't it be great if we set up a region? And as coaches across that region, we started learning off each other, because that's how we can influence and affect real great change within our client base across Asia Pacific. So that was the germination of the idea. It was just a thought bubble, and she held me to it. We've growing Asia Pacific, we've tried to use the values as a guiding principle, and I'll share that as we go along, and really develop I guess a collegiate group of like-minded professionals across the region. Across this, I'm indebted to so many people who've been on the journey with me, some who are on this call, many who are not. They've given time, energy, it's all been voluntary. And from concept through to where we're at today, it's been an absolute wonderful experience of working with people from across those cultures, who, one thing in common, have got huge energy for coaching, mentoring, and EMCC. So that's always wonderful. So if we take a look at the core values and why we did EMCC Asia Pacific, first value is pioneering spirit. So let's start something new. Let's start something in a totally different area and absolutely challenge EMCC that had a European heart and a viewpoint of EMCC being Europe, and start something on the other side of the world. That was very challenging, not only to us, but also to EMCC Global and how they saw the world. Let's do it differently, and seek forgiveness rather than permission. So being on the other side of the world, we had the benefit of not being in the time zone and being able to make some decisions which probably not immediately well received, but over time we were able to seek forgiveness for a lot of those decisions. And inclusiveness, so being really curious about the fact that we come from multiple cultures, multiple beliefs, and let's lean into that and really understand and enjoy and be curious about it. We're in 19 countries at the moment, so that gives us huge diversity. There are many more ethnicities, beliefs, and cultures within each of those countries. That's what it looks like at the moment. They're the main countries we're in. We are over 580 members now. We started with 23 back in January 2019 when we kicked off our first conference in Kuala Lumpur. And growth has been driven by our ambassadors and council members, and they have all been volunteers. We've built a number of wonderful social responsibility projects, including ones that tie across Asia Pacific and Europe. We're working with coaches on projects in Africa, in Cyprus, all over the place. We're really using the EMCC global network there to leverage that. Accreditation's been a really strong point for us and has been an attractor for so many people to join us, especially in the Asia Pacific region, where accreditation and having that stamp of approval at a level of expertise is seen as being a very important part of professional journeys. We really also embrace the academic side of things. We've had 2 in-person conferences. We've had a number of virtual conferences. We've literally done hundreds and hundreds of hours of webinar and professional development across the region. And importantly, we've championed not only European talent coming into that pool, but also Asia Pacific talent being able to then reticulate out into the rest of the world on those sorts of things. I have a passion for bridging the art of coaching and mentoring with the science. So we had a very strong connection to the neuroscience of coaching and mentoring. And we had somebody on our doorstep here who unfortunately passed away, but was a mentor of mine and a professor in neuroscience. And Paul really helped champion that for us in the early days. So where West meets East. One of the most interesting things about Asia Pacific and coaching and mentoring specifically is that when we set it up, there's this huge thirst for knowledge of what coaching and mentoring is from the West. And it was really interesting for me because when you look at the East, a lot of the foundation of coaching and mentoring sits in ancient wisdom that's thousands of years old. Yet so many of the coaches and mentors in this part of the world were looking to the West for knowledge, for frameworks, for models, for whatever it is. And my challenge to all of us is that perhaps we have something to share as well to the West, that it doesn't all have to come from the United States and from Europe, that we actually in Asia have a wealth of knowledge that can be just as easily shared with the rest of the world and lift the tide for everybody in terms of knowledge. And so that's been one of my key themes in what we talk about here. So today is a bit about looking at the complexity of the East, how we can adapt that, and how can we interpret what the East has with what the West is also sharing. And how can that inform my coaching, your coaching, and mentoring? So if I look at complexity to start with, the width and depth of complexity and the cultural and social overlays in Asia Pacific is incredible. Every country has its own racial values, its beliefs, its behaviors. It really is a kaleidoscope. And there's some expectations that sit in all that. One is the official norms and traditions, and there's also the unofficial norms and traditions that sit within each of those countries. Just like anywhere in Europe, I would imagine, or in the United States, or the Americas for that matter. I wanted to give you an example of a Malaysian entrepreneur I was talking to recently, who we were talking about buying a business, and in particular, the specific racial pecking order within Malaysian society. This entrepreneur is what's called a Malay. So in Malaysian culture, if you like, there are Malay Malays, there are Chinese Malays, there are Indian Malays, are the 3 main varieties. And I stand to be corrected on that, please. That's my understanding. And for this gentleman, being a Malay, buying a business on the mainland of Malaysia was beneficial because as a Malay, he attracted different government benefits, including tax benefits, than if he was an Indian Malay or a Chinese Malay. And if he was to buy a business on the island of Borneo, which is part of Malaysia, he wouldn't attract those benefits because he wasn't a native to that island. So even when we look at that as an example of a country being Malaysia and thinking at it as they're just Malaysians, even within that, the tiering of the culture and the different systems and pecking orders that sit within that are quite profound and have huge commercial influence as well as cultural influence. In December last year, in my business, Margaret Armitage and I do a fair bit of work with one of the universities here in Australia, and they've asked us a number of times now to work with very senior female leaders from the Vietnamese government. And in December, I was invited to go up there to run a workshop on leadership with these Vietnamese senior executives. And what I really learned was interesting was that, again, some cultural stratification around things like the local indigenous, the pecking orders of the north and the south of Vietnam, and which families were on which side during the American War, and how that still today, some 30, 40 years later, has a residual and ripple effect on decision making, on who can work in certain government organizations, etc., throughout that country. So just understanding some of the history of the country and how these things reflect the values and the behaviours on the surface, let alone what might be the undercurrents, is quite interesting. So hopefully you're getting an idea that Asia Pacific isn't just one broad brush. There's quite a lot of layering that's going on in our region. Adaptation. EMCC, you can see from the little graphic at the top, we have this wonderful thing called accreditation, and the graphic is probably the simplest way of describing it, and even that is one of the most complex things I hardly get my head around when it comes to accreditation. So we come from a society in the West which is thinking based, which is structured, which is about paper and putting things and documenting, etc. And then you come to a country like Vanuatu, which is an island in the Pacific. Our accreditation team and the VP of accreditation, Nicole Allen, really spearheaded this and asked Tim Dyke, another member of her team, to work with a number of volunteers from around Asia Pacific. So Jeff Duncan from New Zealand and Margaret Armitage here in Perth and a number of others to work with coaches and mentors in Vanuatu to help them through their process of getting accreditation. Now we come to a culture that is not big on documentation, but is huge on storytelling cultures. And in that, documentation doesn't happen. So it's a storytelling culture. So how do we take something that's paper-based, intellectual, accreditation, proof-led, all that stuff, and convert that into a storytelling context? So how do we adapt Western to very Eastern Pacific nation cultures was a huge project. And I think all of us learned on how that adaptation needs to change and be played with culture to culture. Even something as simple as a country where online banking is not well adopted, and you have coaches wanting to pay their accreditation fees, but pretty much unable to unless somehow they can get cash into a bank, into someone's account in the West, who can then pay that into the EMCC, which was a process that a lot of these people had to put on trust to people like Margaret and others to enable them to do. So we're dealing with very, very different, I guess, logistics in this part of the world that if we look at it from a homogenized Western perspective, we would just assume that these things have to happen all around and do happen all around, but they don't. If I look at Australian Indigenous and New Zealand Maori, so Australia and New Zealand are not white Anglo, as many people would think. In Australia, 51% of all kids born, 51% of the parents are born overseas. So again, it's quite an interesting kaleidoscope of cultures in this, what would be described as a Western country from a non-Western, from other Western perspective. So there are a couple of examples there. there was a book that was published in 2018 called Coaching and Mentoring in the Asia Pacific through EMCC. And that was I was lucky enough to have a chapter published on can a white fella be mentored using traditional black fella wisdom? And it was a case study of, so white fella is the white person, and black fella is what our Indigenous call themselves in a loving way, the Aboriginal community. So it was looking at how can we take one culture, being the white Anglo culture, and embed them in deep Aboriginal traditions on the land over a number of days to bring out real key learnings using dreamtime storytelling, using the traditional thousands, like 60,000 plus year historical learnings, and bring that to life for Western corporate people. And if you would like a copy of that chapter, just email me afterwards, and I can flick you a copy without any problem at all. So it's a great little story about how we can take ancient culture and modern cultures and bring them together so that there's some real learning that can be had there. In New Zealand, there's a lovely saying which I think kind of reflects Maori tradition, and you can see it there written in Maori, but it translates to, what is the most important thing in the world? Well, let me tell you, it is people, it is people, it is people. Which I find a really beautiful reflection of the people that I know from New Zealand who are so people related. But also I look at that and go, so in my coaching, what am I dealing with? It might be business coaching, but at the end of the day, business is just an empty canister. It's full of people, full of people, full of people. And they are the most important thing that makes the whole thing go around. And that's what really connects me to my story around why I coach. I wanted to share with you another Indigenous thing from Australia. Wendy Hubert's a West Australian artist, and she recently had a book published which is really about storytelling in her artwork. I Came Around in Circles is the name of her book. And I just wanted to share a couple of ideas with you. So this is a painting from an area where she grew up. And her quote is, "Trees need a good start in life so they can put their roots down deep. Like our children, like me. I struggled with hard times when I was a child, but my roots are strong now." And I kind of look at that and I go, how does that reflect in the coaching I can have and give, and the struggles that my clients go through? And can I use something like even showing them that artwork and that quote and going, how has this struggle, how has this strengthened your roots? How is this strengthening? What is the lesson we're learning here? So for me, a couple of the key themes that come out is, well, first of all, you have to shake the tree to bear fruit, which is the role of the coach. We're shaking the tree all the time so our clients can bear really good fruit. The next point for me is a coaching point, which is around, am I coaching the outcome, or am I coaching the source? Am I coaching the roots of the problem, or am I just trying to trim a few leaves off the tree to help the client? Where am I really focusing, and what is this client's real value going to be? And also, how do I use adversity as a lesson to grow stronger from it? So I take another one. This is a picture of some rocks around where she lived. Sometimes when I paint rocks in my artwork, it is about becoming a stronger person, a stronger woman, a stronger artist. Like the rocks on my nguru, which is basically her land, I have hardened, but not in a sad way. I have moved through my grief and come through the other side. At times this grief is dark and harsh, but on the other side I'm different, stronger, like the rocks. My learnings, what grounds my clients? What are their rocks? Where do they source their strength from? What are they learning from their journey? Commercially, what are their big rocks? What are their big challenges that they're trying to build their business and careers on? And the other one that I think was what Wendy's done here is she said she's taken blame out of this. Like she's not a victim here. She's creating her own path. She's using that adversity as a way of creatively moving forward, as opposed to sitting in it and feeling the victim. all great, to me, great coaching points that I can use in my coaching going forward. The one that I heard recently from our Vice President, Ivan Yong, is let the ruler be ruler, the minister a minister, the father a father, the son a son, from Confucius. So we're talking, almost hundreds and hundreds, thousands of years old. This is a key piece of learning from ancient Chinese wisdom. And the moment I saw that, I immediately went to, how many times have I coached a CEO around imposter syndrome? How many times have we all done that? How many times have we felt imposter syndrome? And I kind of went, well, maybe it's just about acting as if. And even back then, there must have been people who were feeling imposter syndrome, but that wasn't the words being used. So let the ruler be ruler, let the CEO be the CEO, and let yourself be the CEO, your way, your leadership style. Let you lead your way and give yourself that permission. And part of that is helping me in my coaching with people at that level when they're struggling with these issues. The last one I want to share with you is from a book called The Book of the Way by Lao Tzu, the Tao Te Ching. Failure is an opportunity. If you blame someone else, there is no end to the blame. Therefore, the master fulfills her own obligations and corrects her own mistakes. She does what she needs to do and demands nothing of others. I think it's quite profound in terms of leadership and leadership development. And so for me, it's the principles and awareness of leadership, of taking full ownership and responsibility versus blaming yourself or others. And the higher context is acknowledging what is rather than judging what is. And through acknowledgement, being able to, without any energy, see the way forward, take responsibility and make real choices. And again, these are just some of the, I guess, examples that we've picked up from Asia Pacific, and I have from working with my teammates around Asia Pacific. So my personal learnings include things like, ask forgiveness, not permission, when setting up something like Asia Pacific. The more I learn, the less I know, which I find really exciting. The more you scratch the surface, the deeper the wisdom that you can find. Our diversity is super glue. If you embrace it with curiosity, it really helps spread understanding and love versus the fear and resistance that we're often seeing in the world. Understanding the other person from their perspective, their journey and their beliefs takes energy, but boy, it's worth it. It's a lot of fun when you break through and get to really understand them. The other thing I'm learning is that my judgments and assumptions are regularly getting in the way of understanding what's going on. And it's always a constant reminder to me that the journey continues and that my judgments have to be met with awareness first in order for me to put them down and move through them and past them and suspending them. Any preconceived notions, the number of times our clients talk about their notions of what they believe is happening in another part of the world or in the Asia Pacific region, and just being able to suspend that judgment and lean into it again and talk to people, become aware, talk to them about their culture, talk to them about their beliefs and what drives them and how it drives them. We can only understand and learn. And I can keep going, but that's basically it from me. What I think we can do now is if we can break for a short time into breakouts. And what I'd ask you to do is to reflect on that download. I'm sorry, it was quick and lots, but just reflect on that. And what have you learned from this? How does it apply to you and how does it inform your practice in the context of your nationality, your cultural experience? Are there aspects of your own nationality and culture and your experience that it may have triggered, and you could now look at it and say, hey, I could take that and learn from it. Not only that, but I could turn that forward into something I could use in my coaching. And have you got any new awarenesses from this presentation? So with that, I'd like Anna, if you could, to break us up into groups, and I think we'll probably spend about 10, 15 minutes there and then come back.
Yes, so I'm
share our
opening the
journal.
breakout rooms now. Please accept the pop-up that is going to show up for you. And you have the conversation in the chat as well. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for being with us. And Akram, if you want to take the charge of this, how it was for them in the breakout room, because it was your invitation to share a bit of the reflections.
Yeah, so thanks, Anna. I'm just keen to hear back from some people from their reflections. Happy to open up to anybody you'd like to share. Just maybe one, two or three, because we're running out of time. Who'd like to say something?
And I think if anyone wants to use the chat, will be also useful.
Maybe I could say something. Sorry.
No.
Okay, Margaret, you can go first.
I had the delight of being with Anindata and Anna from Romania, I think it is. And so one of us has an Indian heritage, but lived in UK and in Germany and now in Beijing. And Anna, who is Romanian, had lived outside Romania for a number of years in Shanghai, in China, and now back in there. And so it was just this sort of amazing melting pot, I guess, of how much we can learn from one another. And Anna said, "Oh, I feel so enlivened by just crossing cultures in this call with people who have been in the same place that and so it was just lovely how just sharing your cultural background and even the places that you're in brings joy and life to people." So
thanks, Margaret. Lovely. Anyone else? Please.
Maybe I just contribute a little bit. I think it was interesting to see the different kind of stages that we are in when it comes to multicultural experiences, and also in how far, in what depth we may be using it, for our coaching. And I was saying in my group that it can go very deep. Like I would like to be very specialized in a specific approach. And also, I think that there are two things that are very complex. One is the language. I do feel if you use the language of the coachee, there is a big advantage in trust building than if you do this in a foreign language. And the other thing is also, and this relates a lot to China or maybe to Asia Pacific, something that intrigues me is to understand how a foreign education changes the value of a person, because you have a lot of mainland Chinese students who have been educated abroad and they come back after 6 years, and they, from the outside, they appear to have assimilated, to the culture where they have been living. But from the inside, they still carry a very deep, the deep culture of where they are coming from. And I'm quite fascinating in exploring that further, to improve the coaching.
Thank you, Nina. That's great. I don't think there's no clear answer in any of that, but I think it's a great exploration in I guess, yeah, when you extricate yourself from your known culture into a totally different culture for a while, and then come back. I think one of the great coaching questions is, so what did you take and what did you plant and what did you sow from there and reap and bring back to plant from a cultural learning perspective? I think, yeah, it'd be a really interesting inquiry.
Thank you.
I'm just mindful of time. Are there any other questions or comments that people would like to make before I hand it back to Anna?
If not, that's my cue to take over the virtual stage. Akram, thank you so much for this session and creating a space of reflection of how we are showing up for our clients, how we are showing up for coaching space. This was a brilliant exploration from my part as well, because I'm thinking of how am I showing up for my clients. This format of event is based on our experience with Mosaic, which is one of the Romanian project that went globally. Mosaic, it's a peer mentoring program that you can join as a EMCC member. We have several countries enroll in this, and it's an opportunity of networking, self-reflection, peer reflection, and peer development. So if you are curious about more, follow up with us on social media channels. This space of exploring Asia Pacific region was part of a program that we started with EMCC Romania back in January, where we started to raise the cultural and systemic awareness for our members, for everyone who wanted to join into this international conversation, inviting the rational maturity or rational maturity. We embark in a journey across the globe. And we started with Canada, then we went to Africa. Now we are exploring the region of Asia Pacific, and we're gonna follow up with Japan. Looking forward to a new event on this this invitation to explore other perspectives, other cultures, other way of seeing the world, in a way of just becoming part of this brilliant space that it's the globe, actually, because we are not alone. And if prior to the pandemic we were thinking of the borders and thinking of how we can show up in Australia, or how we can show up in Canada, here we are from across the globe, here in a very nice space where we are talking about how we can become aware of everything that is around us. Akram, thank you for opening the space of exploring Asia Pacific region. Judy, looking forward to see you on the next meeting in Japan and see how this
Thank you.
create there.
And may I just give a plug that Jury is here, the Japanese ambassador for EMCC, who is also your guest speaker for the next event on, I believe we've settled on the 27th of August. So Jury will then take us through a wonderful session as well. So just sort of heads up, mark it in your diaries. It will be advertised again soon.
And
thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Akram. And all this was made possible by Duțescu's vision of where EMCC Romania can go, and where EMCC as a whole, as professionals, that we are connecting in this amazing organization. So I'm so happy to see you here. Please connect on LinkedIn with us. And if anything else is left to say, I will be happy to hear your voices in the chat with at least one word of what are you taking away from today, outside of everything that was shared in this space. In the chat, or just open up your microphone or whatever you feel, because we have 3 minutes left. I'm seeing somebody's joining now. And I'm, keeping the eyes on the chat. Okay. Happiness. From all over the world. Thank you. Anticipation. Thank you so much for the insightful and enriching session. Discovery. Okay. Thank you for being here with us. You will get a follow-up email with the article Akram was mentioning, the presentation, and the recording of this session. So, but give us a bit of time. Don't just jump into the email because we're not there yet, but give us a few days to come up with the follow-up. Thank you for being here. Reflection on complexity and depth, going global. Yeah. I love what I'm reading. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for creating the space with us. I'm wishing you a beautiful Tuesday, and may it be full of development and reflection.
Thank you.
Goodbye
Thank you.
from Romania.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
It was a
Bye-bye.
pleasure to have
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you.
Anna and Ak.